I've been back in the US for a little over a year now after having lived abroad for close to 3 years in Rome, Italy. And all of this time has given me a chance to really observe American life and American ideals. And I've finally understood that a lot of the ideals that we have here are not necessarily helpful towards living a good quality life. So let's talk about them. I want to make it very clear that I am not making this video to bash the United States. This is my home, this is my country, and there are so many things that I truly do love about being in America. But having spent this past year and having faced some challenges being back home, I've really been forced to think very critically about my life and what do I value. And I've realized that there are so many things that I really loved about living abroad that I didn't expect to miss as much as I do. And I honestly feel like I cut my time short. And of course, a lot of that is because of the pandemic. But I think it's useful to just share the elements of life abroad that I feel have helped me to grow, and I think could continue to help me to grow if ever I choose to go abroad again. Life in America is just so much more expensive than so many other countries. And in my case, I was living in New York City prior to moving to Rome, which New York City is one of the most expensive cities, if not the most expensive city in the country. And the variance of prices, of expenses from Rome to New York were just so drastic. I mean, my monthly rent in New York was almost exact to my monthly salary in Rome, which blows my mind because I still lived more comfortably in Rome than I did in New York on my itty bitty little salary. And that is because so many other factors of life there were just far cheaper in Rome than they were in New York. For example, my metro pass in Rome was maybe €35 a month. My rent was nowhere near like €1,000. I only paid €10 for my phone bill versus like in the US where you can pay $70 to $100 for one single phone line. And that doesn't even include like healthcare, because if you're not getting healthcare through your job in the United States, you're probably paying $300 at a minimum. Okay? And above. And I'm not even including how much of a deductible you may have to pay. Like some people have like, $7,000 deductibles before their insurance even starts kicking in. And that's very different, of course, in comparison to Rome, where you have access to public health care. Now, of course, Italian citizens can also choose to do public health care. And if you're a foreigner, you can pay out of pocket for healthcare if you need to. But for someone like me who had a job and was working for an Italian company, like I had access to be able to get a tessera sanitaria and go to the doctor for free. So that's a major expense that I don't have to worry about. Versus here, where health insurance can literally make or break you. Even simple expenses like being able to go out to eat for a dinner, for example, are significantly cheaper in Rome than they are in the US. If you want to go out and you want to eat a nice meal, and I'm talking like you're not restricting yourself, okay? We are eating appetizers at this dinner. If you are going out and you're getting a glass of wine, an appetizer, a main plate, and a dessert, and I have done this many times in Rome, you can have all of that and walk away with only having paid like €40. But if you try to have a meal like that in the US, and I'm not even talking like you're going to gourmet places, right? Like I'm talking like regular, just nice quality restaurants. You cannot have all of that food and only pay $40. You can't. Like you are for sure paying at least $80 and up. And that's so frustrating because the food in the US is not even that good. And I say this because it largely has to do with freshness and the quality of ingredients. Because there are so many documentaries that expose the horrors of the American food industry and how lax in some cases the regulations are as to what is allowed to be in our food. And living in a place like Italy and just Europe in general, the regulations for what kind of, like GMOs or preservatives are allowed in the food are so much stricter than what we have here. It is one thing to see and to watch a documentary explaining these differences versus actually getting to taste the difference. And being in Italy and having access to fresh food markets and eating like homemade pasta and fresh seafood and really good quality meats, it's just a world of difference. And one thing that really showed me the difference of what is allowed in the food in Italy versus the US, and it's not even a food item, but it's orange Fanta. And orange Fanta in the US is like this fluorescent, strong, bright orange. And in Italy, it's like this pale yellow. It looks like lemonade. And that clicked in my mind. I was like, oh my God. There's so much crap in this soda. And I love orange soda. But there's so much crap that is just placed in the food. And it's a massive contributor as to why so many Americans are overweight and having problems with, heart issues, diabetes. And it's just like so frustrating that here we just don't have access to the good quality food that we deserve. In the US, there is a very definite idea of what equals success. And that idea can be directly linked to the American dream. And the thing that I find so troubling about the American dream is that, one, it's not as accessible as it once was. And you can find this disillusionment with the American dream through a simple Google search. I mean, if you Google the American dream is dead, you will find so many people will talk about how it just feels so far out of reach. And for myself, what I find is that the American dream has really exacerbated into this like uber materialist, hyper consumption kind of ideal. And I think that Americans have a very unhealthy obsession with wealth and feeling like we have to flex. And I see a lot of this, particularly on social media, that there's so many gurus, so many like business coaches, so many people just online just showing like, all the money that they have, the cars that they can buy, the bags that they can buy. And there's a lot of, I'm better and I'm living a great life because I have all of these things. So if you're at a point in your life now where you can achieve these things, it's almost as if your value in this country diminishes. And I mean, for myself, I'm very close to turning 30, and I don't have any of these markers of material success. And I often struggle with feeling like I'm failing at life or like I'm falling behind. And what I found from living abroad is that I was able to somewhat remove myself from the pressures of having to be the American ideal of success. Another marker of your value in the US is work. And American work culture is probably the number one reason why I left the US in the first place. Because here there is just such an intense emphasis on productivity. And feeling like burnout is almost a badge of honor. And from my own experience, prior to moving to Italy, I was working like regular 9-to-5 job. And there were so many times where I was working like 12-hour shifts. And when I started trying to set boundaries for myself, like making sure I was physically getting up and going outside to eat a lunch versus eating at my desk, or making sure that I was leaving the office at a decent time, like actually leaving at 5 or 6 o'clock, what I noticed was that in some places where I worked, I could feel eyes on me. Like it was a problem that I was leaving the office earlier rather than staying until 7 or 8 o'clock. And when I was able to move abroad, what I realized, even just looking at like Italian workers, was like the long lunches people would take. And something that I also realized is dealing with Italian workers is that they're very protective of their time. And protective of their time in a way that I think Americans are not necessarily allowed to be. And I think that sometimes Italians get a bad rep because, you know, like negative stereotypes will say like, oh, Italians are lazy, blah, blah, blah. But I just think that no, what they are is that they value their time. And if they're about to clock out, like, you're not going to give them something else to do because they're like, I can do it tomorrow. I need to go home. I want to have dinner with my family. And that's it. Boom, period. And I think that as an American, like, you feel so much anxiety that you can't just take your time for yourself. And I just see that just the intense level of productivity and feeling like you have to consistently be on and available for work is something that does not exist when I was living abroad. Since I've been back home, I have often complained to most of my family about how much I miss walking around. And it's something that I didn't expect to bother me so much. Like, I never truly realized just how car dependent Americans are. And there is a phenomenal channel here on YouTube. It's called Not Just for Bikes, that really does a great job explaining car dependency in America and urban planning. And after watching some of these videos, it really helped me to process and reflect that so many Americans have very little choice about how to commute. And unless you're living in a major metropolitan city like New York, you probably have no other option but to get a car. And currently where I am, I'm in Massachusetts and I'm living in a suburb. And if I need to get to the train, I cannot walk to the train. I need my car. I need to be able to drive to the train station, park the car, and then I can get into the city. And I find that very unfair because I think that people should have an option to either take the bus or take a train or drive their car or walk. But the issue with walking in most American cities is that there are no sidewalks. And if there are sidewalks, they don't last for very long. And they're placed like maybe on one side of the street, but not on the other side of the street. And they only go on for about a mile until you get on a really dangerous road where there is no sidewalk and you could potentially be hit by a car. Because walking is just so, it's like almost abnormal here to the point that if you see someone walking, you think they're crazy. And two, so many drivers are not looking for pedestrians, because why would someone be walking? I think this point is going to be a little bit controversial, but I think that America is not as safe as it likes to portray itself to be. And something that I found really interesting from living in Italy is, of course, Italy is significantly smaller than the United States. But if there was ever anything like some kind of murder, right, in Italy, there was just a reaction of so much shock and so much like, oh my gosh, I can't believe something like this happened. We don't have this kind of violence here. And it was really interesting to compare that to the US, where I think Americans in a way have almost become like desensitized to the amount of violence and the level of death that is like consistently happening on a daily basis in this country. And I also find that I think a lot of Americans have a lot of fear, and where that fear comes from obviously varies for different people and their backgrounds. But what I think that a lot of us kind of neglect to realize is that the history of our country is very violent, and America gained its independence through violence. It created its wealth through violence. It took this land through violence. It has maintained its status as a global power through violence. And so I think that that kind of like energy is baked into our culture. And you can see that in the level of gun ownership in the United States. And I'm not saying this as someone who's like anti-gun. I mean, I personally don't want a gun for myself, but I feel like you only think you need a gun because you feel like you need to protect yourself from some kind of violent attack. And that goes back to the basis of a lot of Americans are fearful. And I just don't find that level of fear living abroad versus here. A major point I was trying to make here that I didn't necessarily capture while filming is that I think a lot of this fear and divisiveness is driven in part by media, and it's largely because they benefit from the anger and fear of society, because it's easier to get people to do whatever action it is that they need through anger and fear versus compassion and understanding. And because of that, you can see that in this country, there are a lot of people that are really isolated in kind of these like internet silos and unable to communicate with one another and unable to hear other points of view. And that increased divisiveness has really just led us to feeling super on edge and unable to just kind of function like a normal, peaceful society, if that exists. I want to end this more on a positive note, since my previous point was like a little bit negative, a little bit tense. But one thing that I really, really love about life in Italy is just that the quality of life is so much better. And a lot of that has to do with the pace of living, which is significantly slower than here. It could be just an East Coast thing, but what I found here is just that everything is just so rapid. Everything is moving fast. People really struggle to be able to relax. And even something as simple as going out to dinner, you know, I've mentioned the cost variance previously, but something that's really important to recognize is that in Italy, if you go out for dinner, that table is yours. And you can sit there for as long as you please. No one is going to rush you out. No one is going to try to slip you a bill. And you can sit and relax, have a drink, have a conversation. I mean, I have literally sat in a restaurant with a friend of mine for 6 hours. And it was crazy because I know for a fact you cannot do that here in the US. And it is because here everything is a business. Time is money, and they want you in and out, and they want to turn over that table as fast as possible. But living abroad, that's just not the case. It's considered rude to even give you the bill before you ask for it. Also, vacation time. The standard vacation time in the US is generally 2 weeks. And quite frankly, it's not enough. It's not enough time to be able to take off and really rest and reset to get back to work. But that is the standard. And I have been seeing that I think more companies are trying to change that and are trying to change to unlimited time off. But I would say that for the majority of Americans, 2 weeks paid time off is what they're allowed. Versus living in Europe and living in Italy, where majority of Europeans are taking off a month for summer. And when I got the opportunity to have my August off, it was like heaven for me because I just never experienced getting that amount of time to just relax, to do nothing, go to the beach, have fun, go home and visit my family and come back. Like I had freedom. My time was my own. But so many people feel afraid to even take their time because they know they're going to be met with maybe some disdain in some cases. Or when you come back, it's like you're going to have piles of work that you have to attend to. So just being able to take like a vacation was a huge plus for me living abroad. Ultimately, there are so many opportunities in the United States, and this honestly really is a great place to be. And although I have my misgivings about some really core ideals of American culture, I don't think that they're all entirely negative. However, when you over-internalize some of these ideas about work and where your value derives from and money and the pressure to succeed, it can really affect you. And I found that I have been affected in a lot of ways. And I think I've been affected somewhat negatively in a lot of ways. And for me, my time reflecting on all of this has just shown me there were a lot of really great qualities of my life abroad that I want to incorporate moving forward. And that is, I want to live a slower life. I don't want to feel like I have to move at a fast pace, that I have to, meet this intense standard of this American dream that, quite frankly, is not really attainable anymore. And I want to focus more on my relationships and my friendships, and I want to prepare myself to be a better and stronger woman so that I can have my own children one day and that I can instill them with strong values and help them to have a healthy sense of self so that they're not defined by these outward markers of success, but rather they're defined by their own lived experiences and how they feel about those experiences. And that's ultimately what I want for myself. For anyone who's watching, this video definitely doesn't mean that moving abroad is going to be the answer to all of that for myself or for you. But I do think that it gives you a chance to just step away and figure out, like, what is life like on the other side? That sounds like death, but really, what is life like, in another place? What is life like with a different culture? And how can I learn from a new environment? And I think that you can win a lot for yourself by doing that. And I know that I have. And yeah, ultimately, I don't think I'm done learning from being away from home. And I hope that at some point I can do it again. So with that, I'm going to end this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.